there's a great image of what passed for a soda machine, public soda machine in communist rule in Czechoslovakia. And it really ties in really nicely to how I'd like to begin the conversation of 1989, because the communist regime said, we'll take care of you. Fundamentally, we'll take care of you. We will deliver the goods. You may not like our government, you may not like our politics, but we're going to feed you, we're going to clothe you, we're going to make sure that you have what you need. And there's a moment where that promise is broken. And the moment that promise is broken is the moment that 1989 happens. And it has nothing to do with really intellectual ideas or better forms of government or conversations about democracy or capitalism. It's the fact that they couldn't get toilet paper. That's sort of the basic idea behind it. And the Coke machine fits because literally it's the front of a machine with a glass cup on it. The only way to do it would be to stop at the machine, pay your money, get it dispensed into the glass that was in the machine, drink it, leave the glass, and continue on your way. Which is just like, there's a moment where like students just go about that, like they can't conceptualize it, right? But that's life under communism. I mean, there's obviously a lot more nuance to play. There's obviously a lot more going on than simply the inability to get a can of soda to go. But that sort of lays out for them in very material sense how the revolutions of 1989 begin. It's the collapse, really, of the delivery. When I'm doing the revolutionary theme in world history, I usually begin, it's the French Revolution and the impact of it. That's the first one I do. 1989 is the second. Arab Spring is the third. By the time they hit 1989, they've got some language around revolution, what it means, what it implies, sort of the conditions around which it happens. So when I open the beginning part of introducing them to 1989, when they begin to recognize that this is a resource like a can of soda, which we would take for granted, that we would be able to sort of drop some coins or use your credit card or whatever to purchase something and then continue on our merry way. Like, that was not possible because they didn't have the resources to produce it like that. Then they begin to understand that the material life of people living in that regime was negatively impacted. That's something you see in the French Revolution as well. And you can begin to tease out, what that means and what that looks like. And again, World History Commons allows you to sort of look at that, to open up a document or open up an image and deconstruct it, so that they can see that it isn't simply, we want our freedom. They do, but they have to communicate that desire in a language that's understandable and translatable for them. And the sort of ending of the story of the revolutions that we cover is the so what, right? And having them talk about, like, okay, so you've got all these images, right? You've got all this promise. Like Arab Spring, that moment when, like, it literally seemed like North Africa was going to flip, and that hasn't happened. So having these moments of revolutionary change, having them at least attempt to understand the so what question. The French Revolution Archives, that's got that picture of Marie Antoinette in pencil right before she's guillotined. It's just really like the difference between where she begins in terms of the her wealth, her status, her power, the rest of that in French society and in the French culture at the time, and then the moment right before she's executed where she's in a peasant dress, fundamentally speaking. No makeup, no hair, no nothing, right? That the move that represents. The Marriage of the Supreme Being is one of my favorite. The big crowd scene down near the Place de Concorde, and there's literally probably 5,000, 10,000 Frenchmen getting rebaptized, but not of the Catholic Church, of the Supreme Being. It's just that the radical moment in the French Revolution where they try to literally burn everything to the bedrock and then rebuild it all. That's like a great moment. And everybody shows up. Like, it's not as if you have the choice anymore, right? So that the Festival of the Supreme Being, because they've got questions about, so what does that mean? Like, what's the Supreme Being? How is that different? The Catholic Church has disappeared. Like, there's no religious dynamic in their lives anymore. You can't take that from the people, right? Like the solidarity moment, the high noon moment with Gary Cooper walking down the street, except it says Solidarność in bold red letters. right? It's like that's how Poland conceived of it. The high noon, right? This is your moment. You have a vote that actually allows some democratic voice in the decision about how the government's going to run and whether communism should stay in power or not. And the Solidarity Union and the political organization around it came up with this great graphic that sort of both calls into play, into the narrative, the American ideal, because it's like the iconic Western movie of the solitary individual triumph for good, triumphing over evil. And they repurposed it to play into the Polish conversation, as the sources in World History Comics makes clear. The United States and people in the West were not expecting it. There's a great document. CIA has done a report on the sort of longevity of the Soviet state about 6 months before everything hits the fan and everything collapses. And basically the conclusion of the report is, we can look forward to another 15 to 20 years of robust communist rule in Eastern Europe and in the Soviet Union. And literally like 6 months later, gone.